necessarily need to know exactly what it means to be impoverished to raise the issue of it. My objection with MPs is that they don't. They've turned their back on it. What we've seen is successive governments who put business before people, and they failed to rein in the sort of excessive demands that are raining down on us, whether that's sort of the extortionate property prices and rental prices, or obscene energy and fuel charges, or the outrageous financial and banking charges. So they're the people I have the problem with, not very famous people raising awareness to these issues.
And you mentioned Labour not really being a working class party anymore.
Right.
Do you don't think then that Jeremy Corbyn is changing that?
Well, I mean, at last count, there were 17 millionaires on the front benches, OK? So, again, you have to ask, what do these people know about representing us? But as I say, if they were prepared to put their heads above the parapet, then I don't care how much money you have. Now, Jeremy Corbyn, from his history, we've seen he's always been prepared to sort of stand up and be counted. I think ultimately I'm sort of the mentality that once you get into government, you become part of government anyway. But I do think he is an important voice, Clive, because he is raising these issues that we need to be absolutely aware of. He needs to talk about, working man and women and how we are actually effectively suffering, how the vulnerable in our society are suffering. That's all really important, because what we know from politicians is they leave this glorified life in Westminster when they're in this bubble. Oftentimes they have several jobs and directorships on corporate boards for which they're remunerated very handsomely. They don't have to worry in the same way that we do. We're experiencing this global austerity. They accepted their 10% pay rise. So the differences between us and them are bigger all the time, as we've seen in sort of social trend studies. So I'm not a great fan of politicians, whatever sort of guise they come in, although I am grateful for Jeremy Corbyn raising these issues because we need to know about it. I'd like to just throw a few more facts and figures that I feel he's bringing to the fore in, actually.
Go on.
Such as, well, the whole issue of austerity, I don't agree with austerity. I believe it is very much ideologically led. It's about making sure that the 1% retain the 50% of global wealth, which they are doing very nicely, thank you. It's really a nonsense, austerity is, because as we know, less money in our pockets means that there's less money to spend. We don't have a living wage. We have these MPs who are pontificating from their perches in Westminster, employing their families for 30 grand to do part-time jobs. They have no clue.
Let's not forget, though, David Cameron won the election.
Yes, but let's not
people
also
voted for austerity.
Well, actually, David Cameron won the election on 24% of the vote.
Which was more than anybody else.
Absolutely, but that's because the electorate had become so disenfranchised, because we look at politicians and we go, we know what they're about. They take out £200,000 in expenses. They claw at everything.
But people could have voted against that. It could have been 100% against David Cameron, but it wasn't. He won.
No, it wasn't, but that's because I do believe we have reached a nation of disenfranchisement and we need to rally people. I don't think that the solution is a political one, I have to say. I believe that politics is what's got us into this mess, because at the end of the day, we see David Cameron at the helm, a man who has inherited great wealth, was put through a fantastically elite system, didn't go to the local comp like I did, for example, but went through the elitist system, obviously, of Eton, etc., absolutely hoisted, in the words of Dennis Skinner in many respects about Osborne and Cameron, sort of educated beyond their intelligence in many ways. As you can tell, I'm no great fan of them. And I think they are totally and utterly out of touch with what we are dealing with, whether they represent us or not. But look, you say that the electorate voted for them. Well, the electorate are now up in arms because the electorate didn't vote for tax credit cuts, did they? And this is the problem, I believe.
Well, they voted for £12 billion worth of welfare cuts. That's a pretty good clue. I'm not defending the broken promise. I think that's terrible. But I still think, it's like turkeys voting for Christmas then, isn't it?
Bear in mind this, though, Clive, and this is the fact they don't tell us very often, and that is last year alone there was $13 billion in unclaimed benefits. So actually, there is more in unclaimed benefits than there is in the cut-in benefits that they want to impact on us all, and that's because it's not necessary, it's ideological.
Okay. Can you see Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister? Can you see Mr Corbyn as Prime Minister?
No, I don't. I don't see anybody as Prime Minister. I see things becoming much more localised. Let's take it away from Yes.
No Prime Minister at all?
Absolutely. Clive, I spent the last 5 years looking at this system and realising actually we're dealing with people who are utter charlatans. They have turned their back on the electorate and they've completely sold out on us. They're busy lining their pockets, and what the electorate need to do is stand up and say, no more, I do not accept not only your austerity cuts, which are not about me but are about you, and furthermore, we need to now start having a national conversation, led by Corbyn, I have to say, about what these people are really doing to benefit us as opposed to benefiting themselves.
Right. Well, great to talk to you, Sonia. Some really interesting ideas there. I think maybe Sonia could be a voice of the working class. I'm not sure Sean Bean is. Is Jeremy Corbyn?